Okay, so this video is a little bit near and dear to my heart directly, courtesy of leaving the US, going to Kenya, living there for a short amount of time. And one of the challenges that I experienced in Kenya specifically was trying to work 100% remote, right? So I had left my job in the US, resigned, and then had relocated to live on the African continent. My wife is originally from Kenya. So I wanted to see what it was like to live there, and kids go to school there and to have life there full time. So I can tell you this: I'm back in the US, and it's not because of an inability to find anything. It was just that at that time I didn't fully understand what it took and how difficult it was to launch a business on the continent, the amount of corruption that you have to deal with on a daily basis, and the amount of challenges that you have to work through on a consistent daily basis in order to get anything done. And here's the thing that I found there: you have amazing people with a lot of talent on the African continent. And for people that don't seem to understand, let me tell you this: there are 54 countries on the African continent. There's not Africa's not a country; it's a continent, right? You have so many people from Nigeria, Kenya, Zambia, Tanzania, Ethiopia, Rwanda, all over South Africa, all over the continent, Egypt, Libya, Algeria, Morocco, all over the continent. And and a lot of times people say, "Oh, Egypt is not an Arab country; it's an African country." Okay, look at a map, right? So here's the thing: it was very difficult to apply for remote jobs from there, right? Even as a US citizen, I ran into all kind of challenges being outside of the United States, right? Even though companies were 100% remote, it still was a constant battle. So what I'm going to go into is how to actually go about that process. I eventually landed a job from there and came back here to work, right? Because they had a lot of on-site requirements. So it just wasn't going to work. Trying to fly back and forth was just too expensive. Even when I considered going to UAE and working out of Dubai and then flying back, because the Dubai flight is cheaper. Even if I was in Sharjah or something like that, would have been cheaper to fly back to the US, but it was just too much, right? So will I go outside of the US again? Yes, absolutely. Life outside of the US is absolutely is phenomenal in a lot of different ways, right? The cost of living, as far as housing, is way cheaper than the United States. The fact that you can get help, you can get someone that can help you with cooking and cleaning and driving and things like that. And of course, you don't want to pay just by the. You could pay a little bit more if you're making a little bit more money, and you have your home, you have fresh food, you have organic food, organic meats. The chicken I ate was amazing. The beef and lamb I ate was amazing. So it was better in a lot of different ways. And my stress level was in the basement, right? The time that I spent in Kenya, my stress level went all the way down from the stress and aggravation I dealt with living in the DC metro area. Very stressful, very aggravating. You have no help here. And the only way you're going to get someone that can help you with cooking and cleaning and these different things here is you have to make a tremendous amount of money. Everybody here does things on their own. If they have kids, they try to get the kids to help out. It's just very, very much a challenge here. So if you can stay on the continent or be in UAE or the Middle East or something like that, if that's the lifestyle for you, or if you're in Italy, somewhere in Europe, if you can afford to stay outside the country or live in an area that's low cost of living, it's amazing, right? So let's take a look at some of the strategies that I figured out that was working, right? Now, if I would have been more patient and figured out the visa process, because visas, I swear, visas are ridiculous, man. You have to get a visa to stay inside of a country. You have to be authorized to stay there past 90 days. You have to leave the country, come back. I mean, there's just so much stuff that I learned about living overseas and traveling and commuting overseas that it was an eye opener. And many Americans don't travel outside the US. They might go to another state, maybe, or the biggest trip might be to the Caribbean, to Jamaica, or St. Thomas or something like that. But you really need to see life outside of the U.S. Many Americans need to see life outside the U.S. Australians, UK, the same, because it will give you a different perspective on reality. Even if you're like going to Indonesia or Malaysia or Singapore or something like that, the cost of living is way cheaper than Western countries. It really is, right? If you just open your mind and you're more open minded, you can adapt culturally. Don't go somewhere thinking everybody's supposed to be like you. I mean, or like supposed to be like where you are from. You know, you have to adapt to the environment that you're going to. Anyway, and that's how that's how Kenya's got me eating ugali and sukuma wiki and namachoma. You know, I used to look at ugali like, what is this? You know, but now, man, listen, I ain't gonna lie, the ugali be popping. Ugali is popping. You know what I mean? But anyway, so let's just take a look here. All right. So number one challenge that you'll find is how to apply and connect, right? If you have a job. If you don't have a job, it doesn't really make a big deal. But you need some kind of VPN, and not just on your computer, right? You need a VPN that's on your router. And if you like, and I'll say for my Nigerians, my Kenyans, Rwandans, Ethiopians, Tanzanians, Zambians, etc. So here's the thing. Let me log in with a code real quick. And I don't care if you see this code because it's going to expire and it's going to go away and it's never going to be reused again. So don't look at the code like, oh, I'm going to use that code. You wasting your time, baby. Anyway, you know, so when you have a VPN, you have the option for a manual setup, right? Now, a manual setup allows you to configure your router, right? So you want to buy a third party, like, and I'll say Kenya, for example, right? So if you have a Safaricom router, which is a Huawei device, you need to have another device that you can set up and you can configure WireGuard on that router so that all of the traffic that goes through, and this is if you have a job, all of the traffic that goes through is if you have a job that is out of Dubai or Europe or the US or Australia, et cetera, if you can land a job and they require you to be remotely from that country, like say remote in Australia, remote in the US, remote in Dubai, remote in UK, whatever the scenario is, right? Then you have to make sure that all of your traffic goes through the IP of that region. Okay. If you don't do that, you're going to flag in some of their security systems. You're going to get knocked offline automatically, depending on what kind of system they're using, if they're using Tanium or Fortinet or whatever kind of routing rules or firewall rules or whatever, right? Um, so you need to have that ability to have that IP address from that region in that country. And that's where WireGuard and configuring the router itself is actually really, really important, right? Also, if you travel back home and you're working remote and you need to have a consistent connection, if you're in a decent metro area and say, for example, you're based out of Maryland or Virginia or Washington, D.C., then you pick the Ashburn data center. You have your network connected to the Ashburn data center, and you also want to have a secondary backup, right? Then that's your connection. Then you don't have no issues, right? Um, that's one way. The second way is to have a hotspot that you configure with Surfshark. There's many different providers, but Surfshark is one example. You can configure the hotspot to geolocate where the IP address is. So if you want to geolocate this phone to be Ashburn, Virginia, or Detroit, or Dallas, Texas, or whatever, or Australia, or Dubai, whatever, then you can change the settings through the development option, the dev option on the phone, and actually geolocate yourself by your device. But I really don't recommend doing that unless there's an absolute emergency. Use the router in your house. You more than likely, if you got a job in the West, you need to make sure that you have redundancy in your house, right? Redundant power. You need to have a generator. If you have internet, you need to have a primary and secondary, right? It's 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 not worth losing that job because you're being cheap. It doesn't make no sense, right? So this is one way. Now, applying to remote jobs. Okay. So one example that I found, there's so many, right? There's so many. So remote war was one example that I found, right? So I think the owner of the company is German or something like that. So, so a company like Remote More, you get your whole application set up inside their system. And this is why you have to have your branding set up. You have to have your branding set up. You have to have your social media set up. You want to make sure it's easy to figure out who you are because, like this platform specifically, Remote More, companies come to you. You go through their screening, which let me move this down the screen. So essentially, you put your profile on here, you configure your profile, then you upload a video, then they put you in the marketplace after you sign the NDA. Basically, what they're functioning as is an employer who will market your skill, and then the company comes in and pays, and then they take a percentage of the first paycheck, and then from there you get paid by the company, et cetera. Like contract to hire is basically like a Robert Half for international, right? Which is like a contract company based out of the US. So that's just one option. The other option is you have so many remote jobs. I'm sorry, I'm going around this mic that's underneath my hand, right? Remote.com. This mic is in my way. That's not the right website. Hold on. Move mic. Trying to go around this mic. Okay, so you have so many different. That's remote software. Sorry. This mic. I need to have a mic that's in the air or something. This thing is a nuisance. So anyway, let me just do this. Right. Let me move this out the way. And I apologize for. Let's just use AI real quick. Right. So using AI, give me the top 10 remote. No, 100%. 100% remote job companies that hire candidates all over the world, right? So when you have that list, and you can fine tune this, you can tweak this and play with this with AI. You can go by your local area. You can say update this for Kenya. You can do update this for Nigeria, and let me do update for Nigeria, Tanzania, Rwanda, and Ethiopia, and make it a bullet list with what URLs. Okay, they may or may not put the URLs, but let's just see. So it requires a little bit of research to actually find the right companies. Like you see Canonical's here, Remotely's here. You see TransferWise, of course, Safaricom, Remote Worker Program, GitHub, Pagea Me. I actually don't remember them. I'm surprised I didn't see that one before. So all these different, like you see these different companies that pop up, right? So you just want to go see a lot of people. They say, well, okay, they're local country, but they're paying by the local rates. You want to get dollars, or you want to get pounds, or you want to get Australian dollars, or Canadian dollars, etc. That's a little bit harder because many times when you have companies like that, you have to have either a visa, or you have to have citizenship, or you have to have some kind of way that you're bound to that country to get paid in that rate. Usually they'll want to pay you by the local rate of your country, but you can negotiate and try to work on that and whatever it takes to do that. So that's the application process. But like I said, you want to apply to companies directly. You don't want to apply on job aggregators and job engine websites because you have no idea who that resume is going to. You have so many scams overseas. It's ridiculous. You have really a lot of scams overseas. You have a lot in the U.S. and that tends for the most part to come from Indian recruiters that I've seen and experienced myself. It's been mostly coming from Indian recruiters from India. And sometimes they'll tell you they're coming from India, they're contracted with a company from here, which is fine. But at the same time, if I'm going to apply to a company, I apply to a company directly, right? So if you have that remote router configuration set up for your VPN, that's the first part of the battle to route your traffic. That allows your resume to get through because you have some companies who geo restrict different countries outside of that region. So say, for example, you want to apply for a job as a US based company, but they set up some kind of geo fencing where anyone outside of that region can apply for a job there, right? So if you're in Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, Egypt, Morocco, whatever, and you're trying to apply for a job that's based out of the US or based out of the UK, and they have geofencing enabled, which disables any IP addresses outside of those regions, then you're blocked from applying for those jobs, right? So you have to give yourself a chance and give yourself the ability to access to be able to just apply, right? um, and it may or may not make sense, right, to apply that way. So everybody has a different reason why they apply for different jobs and what matters to them. So that's just one aspect, and a secondary aspect is going direct and finding companies that deal with talent outside of the continent. Or if you're applying for companies inside the continent, you want to make sure that they're very profitable companies. Like, for example, like Safaricom in Kenya, as an example, they are an extremely popular platform throughout the entire country, right? M-Pesa is huge. This company, even in the Kenya Peninsula, which we call it the Safari, what did they call it? Kenya. I forgot the name now. Silicon Savannah. I was forgetting Silicon Savannah. So it's, they have very advanced technologies as far as mobile is concerned in Kenya, far beyond many other countries, even some Western countries. They're nowhere near embedded like M-Pesa, not even close. M-Pesa is embedded in the society from all the way down, all the way up, right? From the farmer all the way to the engineer. The way that they have it set up is really cool, right? I really like M-Pesa and how M-Pesa works. Very flexible, and I could pay for everything anywhere I went with M-Pesa. It was awesome. All right. So telecom companies, let's just say telecom in Nigeria, right? Now, one of the biggest challenges with the continent that I experienced directly, if you don't know someone and you're not a foreigner, many times you deal with a lot of bigotry based upon your tribe, who you know, or what you're willing to pay for someone to help you get a job at that company. And it's sad that that happens because outside of the continent, it's really about your skill set. You may get jobs many times based upon who you know, even in the US, UK, Australia. That does happen all of the time, but it's not as prevalent like it is in the African continent or Dubai, UAE, Middle East, and some other countries, Asian countries, etc. Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore. You really, in the Western countries, I think the biggest advantage is you don't need to know anybody to apply for a job. You can just apply, and many times you may land a role. You at least land an interview, and if you get through it, you do well, you may land a job, right? So it's possible. But in these environments, it's very difficult, very challenging. Even me, as an American, I found trying to interview with Safaricom challenging. They weren't just taking anybody, and my skill was crazy, And at the same time, it was competitive, extremely competitive. So don't take Africa for no joke. That you can just you think because you're from the West or the US or UK, Australia, you're just gonna walk into one of them jobs. No, the folks there are highly skilled. Now what I don't agree with is how people get paid because they're doing the same jobs, but they're going by their local economy, so you can't knock anybody for that. But you can try to get paid a little bit more, but that's where remote work really comes in, right? So applying directly to companies directly outside of the continent, also to large scale companies, that is also a method that you can use. Now, I am aware fully that it's a roll of the dice if you don't know anybody. I understand that very well, right? Um, it's just the nature of life on the continent. There's really no way to avoid it. It's all relationship driven in a lot of different ways. And it's hard. It's very hard, very difficult. And I really feel for youth on the continent because that's something that I really wish would change. But anyway, you keep trying. And the advantage of being on the continent is that you can use all of these tools and programs that are available from like Google or Amazon or all these different vendors, GitHub, GitLab, all these different tech companies and non-tech companies like Maersk, right? That shipping and logistics companies, they're transit companies. There's so many different opportunities. You just have to try. You have to try. You have to do the research, and you have to keep at it and not let go. Because I stayed at it for months, right? day after day, every single day, and then got the interviews, did the interviews remotely, and then landed the job, right? Now, make no mistake, I do not take or discount the privilege of having that blue passport and being able to fly back, right? Not everybody has that access or that ability. That is something that's very even to get for Kenya an East African passport. You got to deal with a lot of foolishness with brokers. You have to. Uh, you can apply online, but at some point somebody's going to ask for some scratch in their hands to be able to help you to get that actual passport, and it's just a way of life there, And some people in the government are trying to change that, and even though the rules are in place to not allow it, it still happens. But hopefully, God willing, in the future, it will stop at some point for the different countries in Africa where that is a problem and a continuing problem. Yeah, hopefully it changes. But this is just a quick snapshot of how to actually apply. You need that VPN. You need to apply direct. You need to have your social media on fire, right? So, as a closeout, let me show LinkedIn, right? Some folks, mostly many I've seen have been Nigerians, right? I gotta give it to my Nigerian brothers and sisters. They be on it. They be moving. They be moving though. Right? So you want to make sure that you take the time to fill out your LinkedIn. If you're IT or a project manager or a scrum master, fill out your whole profile. Put a professional photo of your face, shoulders, looking at the camera, looking professional, right? Professional background photo, something that speaks to who you are and advertises you, right? Professional description, some kind of link to a website or a link tree. It needs to be professional looking. It is very important that you take this serious because your online branding will determine somebody's attraction to you as an IT professional, whether you're a cloud engineer, Linux system engineer, a DevOps engineer, a Scrum Master, software engineer, whatever engineer you want to call it. It could be biscuits and gravy engineer, chicken engineer, cuckoo engineer. You need to make sure you stand out. Because if you don't stand out, you're not competitive. And if you're not competitive, you're going to stay in the same situation that you're in for years and years because you don't take competing seriously, right? So build your profile out, right? Put an about, put your services if you want. Make sure you're posting continuously stuff related to what you focus on, your branding, your skill set, right? Network with people who are in your field, whether it's cloud, cybersecurity, Linux, software engineering. Network with the folks in your sphere and build your network. If they have networking events, go to those networking events and try to meet people. Get your name out there, right? That's how you can circumvent some of that, nepotism, who you know, how much you got to pay kind of nonsense, right? That's how you can avoid some of it. So I avoided some of it, right? Make sure that, okay, say for example, you don't have a job, right? You're looking for a job. Create your own company, right? Create your own company, make a logo, create a website, and make yourself a consultant for yourself. Freelance for yourself, whether you use Fiverr or whatever kind of freelance website, set it up, configure it, do a logo, do a professional looking website, do a LinkedIn page. Like for example, let me just show you Sage Tech page. Do post on a page. Let me click on link as a member. Post and make yourself look like a pro. It is very important that you look like a pro, right? Not Joe, a pro. Okay. So let's go back. Okay. Build out your profile. If you have experience or you don't, build it out. Build it out. Don't put crap that's not necessary. Now, another thing, your education. Okay, you couldn't afford university, but you got certifications or you completed the training program. Put the training program there, put the certificate there, right? Not Ricky Hussein's Linux shop, right? Something a little bit more professional, whether it's alt school or there's professional schools throughout the continent that you can pick from and get a certificate from, right? Now, if you're broke, You got to find something online. You have to use the free stuff like Cisco Networking Academy. You need to pick something reputable, right? If you broke, so broke that if you walk past a kiosk, it's going to close on you. You know what I mean? You do what you have to do, but use the free stuff that's available that will give you a Creeley badge and make you look professional, make you look like you have the skill. Do not post a whole bunch of LinkedIn training. Okay. LinkedIn training doesn't give you no Creeley badge. You need something that's going to give you a certificate, a Creeley badge, whether it's like Google IT support certificate, Google cybersecurity certificate, or Cisco Networking Academy, Coursera, something that's going to actually give you a certificate to build up for the education that you're missing, right? And IT certifications, okay? So, and you want to apply to any programs that are available that actually will pay a voucher for you to take a certification exam. Google does it every single year. I've never seen Red Hat do it. I don't remember Red Hat ever giving away a certification or vouchers for it, but it's possible. Check on it. Linux Foundation, they do discounts every year on Cyber Monday, so you just have to kind of get creative, work the family members, work the networks, and try to get the stuff paid for and get it done. You can do anything you put your mind to if you put your mind to it. But trust me, I do not take it lightly. That is hard, right? So, you know, and you just keep going. And here's the biggest thing. This is this is a pet peeve of mine. If you post a certificate and it's a third party vendor, I don't care who it is, you better make sure there's a way to show that credential, right? Make sure that somebody can, and like say for example, the verified is Security Plus, right? Make sure that somebody can click on your profile and verify your training, right? Show credentials. And this is why I like Creeley badges so much, right? And it doesn't have to just be Creeley. It just needs to be a badge issuer. It could be certifier, right? Like for example, I've got a credential from a certificate provider that we manage, right? And it's certifier, right? Works like Creeley badges, looks really good. It looks amazingly professional, and it's great. It looks awesome, right? And this is certifier, right? So the biggest thing is you have to have that professional look. You have to look like you know what you're doing, and you actually have to spend it. So, and this is another thing. I'll say this for my brothers and sisters on the continent: don't pay somebody else to do the work for you to boost up your profile, right? And then you can't do the work, and you can't clear the interview because you didn't do the work. Do the work yourself, right? It just doesn't make any sense. I've come in contact with so many people that did that nonsense, or they're paying Indian companies to scam out on certifications. And I know a couple who got caught, and they had got to the UK, got found out. They obviously couldn't do the job, right? And within 5 to 6 months, they were homeless in the UK, and then was trying to figure out how to get back to Kenya and Nigeria. It just didn't make any sense, right? So do your own work. Make sure the credentials that you have are actually yours. And it actually is not just the African continent. People do it in the US too. So it's not like it doesn't happen here. It happens here too, right? Um, and then you just keep going. You keep pushing to keep trying. And when you do land a job, like I'm doing, right? Buy some land, build a house, make sure that you're getting ready for your retirement because you're not going to be young forever. You are not going to be young forever. You're not going to be healthy forever, right? You need to have money or a home to call home. You need to have something that you own that's yours. And you don't want to rely on the job for the rest of your life. You want to have some other kind of business that will put money in your pocket when your brain is not functioning enough to do this IT stuff no more, because you will burn out. Trust me. I've been doing IT since 2007, and it's 2025. And I can tell you firsthand, you get burnt out. You did. That's one of the reasons why I went to Umrah to Saudi Arabia for a month, and and also went to Kenya for some time. I was burnt out. I was stressed out and burnt out from grinding in the U.S. nonstop, right? So I needed a break, and everybody needs a break, right? And when you don't take a break, you burn out. And I burnt out, so I know what it's like, right? I mean, you will burn out like crazy. So have a plan. Don't just focus on working and making money. Have a reason why you're working and making money. And then you apply, apply, apply. But it's all about how you brand yourself and represent yourself and sell yourself to be able to get what you need for yourself or for your family or whatever it is that's important to you. All right. So this is the end. I hope it was helpful. Please do a review on Trustpilot if you found it helpful. If you didn't, hey, I tried my best. Okay. All right. Have a good evening and we'll talk soon.